"Attention shoppers," came a male voice over the intercom. "Please move to the back of the store immediately." "The back of the store," I whispered to Daniel. "Don't they mean the front of the store? To pay for our stuff?" It was 8:50 p.m. 10 minutes till closing time. We'd brought our 2 kids out on this late-night Walmart excursion in the hopes of burning off some energy. Instead, they'd just thrown tantrums for new Legos and Hot Wheels. It was a disaster. But apparently, the disaster was just beginning. "Please move to the back of the store immediately," the voice repeated overhead. "This is not a drill." I glanced around, but the other shoppers were just as confused as I was. An old lady looked up at the ceiling, scrunching her face. "What the hell?" a dark-haired woman asked her boyfriend, pushing a cart full of garden supplies. "Didn't you hear?" an older man said, leaning over his cart of bottled water and canned food. "We're in a tornado watch. 1 touchdown in Sourville." A tornado. It was definitely storming outside. I'd seen the black clouds roll in from the east earlier, but it didn't look that bad. "Do not stay out in the open. I repeat, do not stay out in the open." There was a pause, then an explosion of sound as everyone began to mobilize. Carts rolling, panicked voices, feet slapping on the floor. No. This can't be happening. I hurried down the toy aisle, Tucker in my arms, Daniel and Jackson following me. 3 zigzaggy turns, and then we were in the electronics area. I glanced at the TVs on the wall and pictured the 4 of us crushed underneath them. "Stay away from windows and doors," the voice continued on the loudspeaker, "and do not attempt to exit the store." Is it safe here?" Daniel shook his head. "Big open areas aren't good. I'm going to check in back, see if there's a break room or something. You stay here, okay?" I nodded. Arms shaking, I sat down on the ground between 2 shelves of video games. Tucker sucked on a bottle in my arms while Jackson began to giggle. "Is the tornado going to hit the store, and everything will fly around real fast?" he asked with a big stupid grin on his face. "I don't know. A tornado. A real-life tornado, like you see in the movies, plowing through our town. It was so unfathomable. We were New York natives, transplanted here to Indiana only 6 months ago. I'd never been in a tornado watch my entire life." Daniel jogged back into view. "Everything's locked up," he said as he joined me on the floor. "But listen, Fairview's a big town. The chances that it'll hit this Walmart, I think we'll be okay. I never should have brought us here. You didn't know. None of us did." He wrapped his arm around me. "They should have warned us, like an emergency alert on our phones, or a tornado siren or something." The voice overhead rang out again through the store. "Do not stay out in the open. Do not make yourself visible. That includes security cameras. Please move to a spot that is not visible to any cameras." I frowned. What does that have to do with tornadoes? A feeling of unease in the pit of my stomach. I glanced up and saw several black globes descending from the ceiling, hiding the cameras within. "I guess we should listen to them and get out of sight," I whispered. I grabbed Jackson's hand, Daniel picked up Tucker, and we jogged out into the center aisle. The store was an eerie sight. Abandoned shopping carts, askew in the aisle, full of everything from pies to batteries to plants. Footsteps echoed around the store from people unseen as they found their new hiding places. We dodged a shopping cart full of soda, ran through kitchenwares, and then stopped in the Easter decoration aisle. There was a camera in the central corridor, but as long as we stayed in the middle of Easter aisle, we'd be invisible. The 4 of us crouched on the floor, next to some demented-looking Easter bunnies. "I'm hungry," Jackson whined. "Shh. Mommy." I grabbed a bag of colorful chocolate eggs and ripped it open. "Here, candy. Happy?" I whispered, thrusting them into his hands. Then I leaned back against the metal shelves, panting. But I didn't have long to rest. A mechanical whine overhead, and then the voice came through the speakers again. Keep away from aisles with food. If you have food with you, leave it and move to a new hiding place. If you have any open wounds, cover them with clothing. What the fuck? That had nothing to do with keeping safe in a tornado. We should make a run for it, Daniel whispered to me, starting to stand. But the tornado. I don't think there is a tornado. Listen, do you hear any wind? I listened, but all I heard was silence. No howling wind, no shaking ground, no projectiles clanging against the metal roof. Maybe it's still coming. I know what they're saying doesn't make sense, but to go outside, we need to get out of here. Now. He grabbed Jackson's hand as he held Tucker in his arms. Come on. Daniel, I don't think that's a good idea, I whispered. But the next words from the intercom changed my mind. Assume a fetal position and place your hands on your head. Close your eyes and do not open them for any reason. Let's go. We broke into a sprint and ran down the central aisle. Cameras be damned. The front door appeared in front of us, a little black rectangle looming in the distance. And as we got closer, I saw Daniel was right. There was a tree at the border of the parking lot, under a street lamp. It was perfectly still. We continued running, past the clothing area, past the snacks lined up at the checkout lines. I ran towards the sliding glass doors as fast as my legs would carry me. Almost there. Almost there. Almost. The doors didn't open. No. Daniel slammed his body against the door. It rattled underneath him. I tried to squeeze my fingers into the gap between them, to try and pull them apart. They didn't budge. They locked us in, I whispered. I want to go home, Jackson said. Tucker was beginning to fuss too, making little noises like he was about to start full-on wailing. I turned around, and that's when I saw him, a Walmart employee. He was sitting on the ground at the end of one of the checkout aisles, facing away from us, wearing the familiar blue vest with a golden starburst. Hey, let us out! He didn't reply. Did you hear me? I don't care if there's a fucking tornado. Unlock the door and let us out. Again, he said nothing. But in the silence, I could hear something. A wet, smacking sound. I stared at the man, slightly hunched over, still facing away from me. Was he eating something? The speaker overhead crackled to life. Attention, please do not talk to any Walmart employees. My blood ran cold. The smacking sound stopped. And then, slowly, the man began to stand. He placed his palms on the conveyor belt and pushed up, and I could see that they were stained with blood. I backed away, but my legs felt like they were moving through a vat of honey. No. Fingers locked around my arm and yanked. Come on, Daniel shouted. I sprinted after him, deeper into the store. Tucker stared at me over his shoulder, and Jackson ran as fast as his little feet would take him. I was vaguely aware of the slap, slap, slap sound behind me, but I didn't dare look back. Daniel ran into the clothing area and I swayed, dodging circular racks of t-shirts and wooden displays of baby clothes. He skidded to a stop and ducked into the dressing room area. In here, he whispered, motioning at one of the rooms. We piled inside and locked the door. Daddy, Jackson started. You listen to me very carefully, I said, crouching to his level. You have to be absolutely silent. Do not say a word, okay? Jackson looked at me, then Daniel. Then he nodded and sat down on the floor. I'm going to try to call 911, Daniel whispered, transferring Tucker to me and pulling out his phone. He tapped at the screen, then frowned. What? We don't seem to have any service. I don't. Thump. I grabbed Jackson and pulled him away from the door. The four of us huddled in the corner. I held my breath. Thump. Under the gap of the dressing room door, men's feet in black shoes. They slowly took a step forward, deeper into the dressing room. "Don't move," I whispered, holding Jackson. The man took another step. "Don't make a sound. Don't move. Don't." Tucker let out a soft cry. The man stopped, his feet turned, pointing at us. "Number. No, no, no." Tucker let out another cry, louder this time. My nails dug into Daniel's hand. "No." A hand appeared. It slowly pressed against the floor, stained with blood. And then his knees appeared as he lowered himself down to the gap. Number, could he fit under? The gap wasn't small. It was like the stall door to a bathroom. If he flattened himself against the floor, there's a chance he could fit under. I watched in horror as his stomach came into view, his blue Walmart vest, as he lowered his body to the floor. Then he pushed his arm under the gap and blindly swept it across the floor, as if feeling for us. "This is it. We're going to die." And then he lowered his head, his face. Oh God, there was something horribly wrong with his face. He smiled up at us with a smile that was impossibly wide, showing off blood-stained teeth. His skin was so pale it was nearly blue, and his eyes, they were milky white, without pupils or irises. I opened my mouth to scream. "Attention shoppers," the voice began overhead. "No, no, no. Please make your way to the front of the store and make your final purchases. We will be closing in 10 minutes. "What?" And then, before I could react, something unseen jerked the man out of view. A strange dragging sound followed, as if someone was dragging his body out of the dressing room area. I stared at the door, shaking, as Tucker's cries rang in my ears. But he didn't come back. And within 10 minutes, the usual hubbub of Walmart returned. Voices, footsteps, shopping cart wheels rolling along the floor. Shaking, I finally got up and unlocked the door. The store looked completely normal. People were lined up at the cash registers, placing their goods on the conveyor belts. Employees were scanning tags, printing receipts. People walked towards the glass doors, and when they did, they slid open. As we slowly walked towards the exit, I spotted the older man who'd warned us about the tornado earlier. "What? What was that?" I asked, unable to keep my voice from shaking. He shrugged. "I guess the tornado missed us. What a miracle, huh?" Giving us a smile, he disappeared out the glass doors and into the night. I live in Auckland, New Zealand. Me and my girlfriend live in uni accommodation in the city. I lost contact with my high school friends, so practically my entire friend group lives in the same building. The uni dorms are very large, very full, and, unsurprisingly, very loud. It's common to see and hear drunk students and party guests throughout the halls at night. You begin to tune it out over time and stop paying attention. Perhaps that's why they were less careful around us. Anyway, orientation week was coming up, and my mates and I thought it would be a good night to go out clubbing. I don't know if it's the same everywhere else, but all the nightclubs here treat orientation like it's Christmas. Toga parties, angel and devil nights, the whole lot. The rest of my group chat hardly ever even replies to messages like this, but I can always count on Ethan and Andre to come out to town. So last Wednesday we headed to Sapphire. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Sapphire. It's always too crowded, and there's no seating whatsoever. But Andre was set on going to this gig tonight, so me and Ethan kind of just followed. We got into the club with no problem, as we had only a few pre-drinks. I thought I saw someone cut in front of us, as the bouncer was checking our IDs. But they couldn't have. There was another bouncer on the other side who didn't seem to see anything, so I didn't really react to it. Andre went off to mosh while me and Ethan went to order drinks. Ethan orders a beer. I order a Jaeger bomb. Just as the bartender hands me my drink, I hear Ethan's voice next to me. Is that dude staring at us? I paid no attention to Ethan. I didn't even look around, as I was too busy paying the bartender. I didn't really even take in his words because I was too busy wondering how a shot of Jaeger and Red Bull could combine to cost $12. But before I could reply, a full bottle of beer shattered around my feet. Ethan's beer. I flicked around to see what had happened. Ethan wasn't stupid, and he wasn't drunk. Had someone knocked it out of his hand? But Ethan was gone. At first, I assumed he had just headed into the mosh pit to hang out with Andre. But then the bartender spoke up. Did you see that? She laughed before looking around confused. See what? I replied, a bit bewildered by the whole situation. She replied, I swear, I just saw someone run into your mate. I looked behind me, looked at the ground. No Ethan to be seen. Looking at the floor, I think I remember a pair of legs sprinting past me, but I was focused on looking for Ethan, so I didn't really register them or react to them. Confused, I looked up at the bartender. She was gone as well. Where had she gone? There was another customer behind me in the line, and she was the only one behind the till, so she wouldn't just leave her post like that. I was beginning to get freaked out. I pushed my way to the mosh pit to Andre. Maybe Ethan was with him. Andre was in his own world, dancing in the mosh pit. He was focused on the DJ, focused on the girls, focused on dancing along with everyone else. As far as I can tell, no one but me even saw what was standing behind him. I can't tell you what I saw for reasons I'll explain later, but trust me when I say this thing was not human, although, yet, human enough that it could almost blend into a crowd like this. Almost. I was about to call out, to scream or point, to call security, to signal to Andre to run. Thank God I didn't, because as soon as that creature turned around to face me, everything clicked. Ethan tried to point something out to me, and then he vanished. The bartender called out his attacker, and she vanished too. Yet Andre and everyone around him were minding their own business, and they were fine. As it turned around to face me, its hideous features burned into the back of my eyelid. I calmly brought out my phone and began texting my girlfriend. I'm coming home. Do not text me. Keep the doors locked until I arrive. I'll explain everything when I get there. I turned around as calmly as I could and walked away. I walked up the stairs and turned up the road. I heard a side door open. I did not react. I heard footsteps scuttling behind me. I did not turn around. Then Andre's voice. Yo, Cody, where are you going? I prayed to whoever was listening that the creature was well hidden again, that Andre would not see it tailing me. I almost broke down. I wanted to scream at him to leave, but I just couldn't. So I continued walking. Then he said it. Who's that with you? As far as I could tell, those were his last words. I walked to the halls. I wanted to cry, but this thing was still sussing me out. I wanted to break down in tears, but I knew what would happen if I registered this thing's existence. I started to wonder if leading this thing home was even the smart thing to do, but I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to curl up in bed and stay under the covers until whatever this thing was decided I was deaf or blind or stupid enough to leave alone. I unlocked the gate. It clambered over the wall. I got in the elevator. Ite got in with me. The whole ride it was towering over me, staring at me, wondering how I hadn't noticed it yet. I walked to my apartment and knocked on the door. My girlfriend called out to me. The second she yelled out, the creature vanished, sprinting away at an unnatural speed down the hallway and ducking behind what I think was a bin. I don't know. I wasn't looking. I called out to my girlfriend, who impishly opened the door, clearly terrified by my text. The thing was very well hidden, yet the hallway had very little cover. Whatever this thing was, It could conceal itself very well. Not that it mattered, because as my girlfriend opened the door, I saw it. The creature's face pressed up against the window behind her, watching me. But it was different. The features were slightly screwed, slightly changed. The daunting realization hit me that no doors had opened in the hallway, and we were 6 stories up. This was not the same creature. As my girlfriend turned around, the face at the window ducked out of sight. She turned back to me. It rose back up. The face could switch from pressing its face against the window to vanishing beneath it with such seamless efficiency. I had to remind myself I couldn't allow myself to be mesmerized by its movements. My girlfriend was being watched, but she would never have any idea. Had it been here all night, all week? How long had this thing been here, pressing its monstrous face against the window, and yet somehow staying out of sight? I quietly explained to her what had happened, starting by explaining that she couldn't react to what I said no matter what. Then explaining the creature's details, what it looked like. Maybe it was stupid, but I had never been more stressed and confused in my life, and I just wanted someone to talk to. She calmly gulped. A tear rolled down her face. She wandered over to the cupboard and started sifting through papers. I wondered if she even believed me, or whether she was just taking my act natural advice very seriously. But then she pulled out the drawing. A child's drawing. Her childhood drawing. A young girl, surrounded by at least half a dozen tall, inhuman figures. I didn't get a good look. 1 second she was there in the hallway. The next I couldn't even recognize her corpse. A third creature stood in her place, her lifeless body broken and bloodied on the carpet. Her arms and legs were mangled and twisted like broken twigs. Her face, unidentifiable. If you were hoping to get a proper description of these things, I'm sorry. Now you know why that isn't going to happen. I would rather die than allow someone to recreate that drawing. God forbid someone ever posts a sketch of this thing on the internet. Terror doesn't even begin to describe what I was feeling, face to face finally with this thing. But it got worse when I heard the window shatter and the door break down. All 3 creatures standing in my dining room, staring down at me as I sat, staring at my girlfriend's mutilated corpse. The creatures stood and waited, and waited, and waited. Until finally I stood up, walked over to the fridge, took out a beer, sat right back down in my chair, and drank it calmly. I don't know what kind of primal willpower I had in that moment, what kind of drive or mental strength I had during the worst minutes of my life. But after I did, the creatures left. In the blink of an eye, the body had been removed and the blood was cleaned up. A few days later, I was called into the station to help clear the air about my missing friends. I told them very little. Ethan, Andre, and my girlfriend have all gone down among ever-growing list of missing people. I wonder how many others are missing for the same reason. How many innocent people are in jail, blamed for these monsters' crimes. I needed to make this post. I need to let people know they no longer hide from me. They are everywhere. You couldn't possibly comprehend how many you walk past every day, how many are watching you as you drive to work. You have no idea how many dark corners they lurk in, and how many windows they stand outside. You haven't seen how many roofs they cling to, the crowds they stand among. If you share this to your loved ones, make sure they read it lying down. Remind them to read it on a phone, and tell them to hold the phone no less than 6 inches from their face. Because more often than not, you are not alone. Today has not been going well for me. It started out rough. I accidentally set my alarm for 8 p.m. instead of a.m. Woke up at 10, an hour before my job interview with some guy looking to open up a shoe store. Not my first choice, but you know how it is, living in the middle of nowhere. When you've got $3 stores, all within walking distance of each other, you know your town is basically dead. I hurried out of bed, brushed my hair and combed my teeth, the usual drill. put on the cheap-ass suit I got from Goodwill, and hopped in the car, headed to the mall. 10:30 a.m. at the mall on a Saturday. You'd think it'd be busy. You'd be wrong. The place only has like 4 businesses anymore. A cafe, an insurance company's office, a consignment shop, and the local branch office for a political party. How thrilling. I hit up the cafe, grabbed a double espresso, hoping the caffeine would make up for the lack of breakfast, the extra energy for the wrinkles in my shirt. After a quick pit stop at the men's room, cringing at my reflection, really should have taken 2 minutes to shave, I headed off to the vacant spot where the shoe store was going to be. Apparently the guy didn't have any sort of office, so we were supposed to meet up here. 10:45, made it with time to spare. Shoe dude hadn't shown up yet, no biggie. I pulled out my phone, figured I'd get some reading done. No signal, but I had my stuff downloaded onto my phone. I've gotten used to no reception, pretty normal for my town. 11:30, I'd made good progress on my book, but no sign of the guy. I decided to go out to my car, have a quick smoke, see if I had missed a call. I started walking, going past the bathrooms, thinking about the mall. It's been dying for years, but it's still surreal to be in here with it so empty. And the place has always been an oddity. The outside is the same red bricks that half of the buildings downtown are made of, the shape a rectangle that takes up most of a block. But for some reason, the inside is all twisted. Most of the store spaces have at least one weird angle in the walls. The halls don't line up with the outside walls and zigzag all over. And as I'm thinking all this to myself, I realize that I no longer know where I am in this labyrinth. I shouldn't have gotten lost this quick. It was a straight shot out. Vacant shop to bathrooms, bathrooms to cafe, cafe to exit. But I'd walked past the bathrooms, and there's no sign of the cafe anywhere. I figured at first that I was misremembering things, that the cafe was just further than I thought. I started to jog down the hall, looking for the cafe or an exit. All the hallways in this place ended at one of the exterior doors, so even if you got lost, you could just go out onto the street and get oriented. By the time I was out of breath, I knew something was up. I'd followed this hallway pretty far. I'm not in great shape, but I can jog for a few blocks without any trouble. And the mall was small, only a block long. No sign of the cafe, the insurance office, nothing. Just rows and rows of vacant shops, shutters pulled down, lights out. A glance at my phone showed me that I still had no signal. Not knowing what else to do, I started listening, hoping to catch something. A bit of chit-chat from the cafe, running water from the bathrooms, something. Hell, traffic noises from outside. Anything that could give me a clue. After a minute, I thought I heard music coming from down the hall. Perfect. That must be the coffee shop. As I started to walk towards the music, I noticed that the floor had changed. I thought the entire mall had your standard off-white floor tiles, the sort of thing you'd see anywhere. But the tiles here weren't flat. Take a piece of paper and crumple it up, smooth it back out. It was like that. After walking for what felt like way too long, I finally found where the music was coming from. It was a music store, lights off, and a record player on. No one home, but the shutter was up. I walked in, hoping to find an employee and trying not to think about the fact that my town doesn't have a music store. I walked in and promptly slipped and hit my head on a display. On the one hand, my head hurt like hell now. On the other, this was more evidence that someone had been here recently. Someone had to have spilled this crap. It wasn't water, so it wasn't a leaky pipe or the roof. It was some sort of blue ooze. The stuff smelled terrible. So here I am, sitting on a stool behind the counter. When I went to check my phone, I found that I have a few bars of reception. I missed a call from the shoe guy. He seemed pretty angry. When I called him back, he said there's no music store at the mall. Well, I beg to differ. I guess I didn't get the job. Now I'm just hanging out, waiting for someone to show up. called a few friends, but they weren't able to find the store I'm in. They all were pretty annoyed, thought I was playing some sort of an out-of-season April Fool's joke. It's 4 p.m. right now. I figure an employee has to show up soon to lock the place up. I'll get directions from them. Maybe there's a logical reason for this place being bigger on the inside. Maybe I just got confused. I did skip breakfast after all. In the meantime, I have my phone and my charger. I really hope someone shows up soon. When the record stopped, I could swear I heard growling coming from the walls. Probably just noisy pipes, but still really creepy. At least there's plenty of music to play. I'll let you all know how things turn out in the morning.